Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to discuss about Visit to the Unknown from Tensei Shitara Slime Talk, and so without any ado let's begin. Visit to the Unknown, 19 Day of Regeneration Part 1. I deactivated the time suspension. We should charge in and neutralize the effects of the gravity waves. And then Miss Jejil can. I can go with you. I came this far, after all. And I intend to go until the end. All at once, things became very noisy again. I would have to make them all calm down once, so they could listen to what I had to say. While the immediate danger was gone, the root of the problem had not been solved yet. To be precise, while the world had not been destroyed, the planet was still dying. I opened my mouth to say something, but it turned out that there was no need. Michelle had opened her eyes. Silence. A shout. That was all. Those who had been talking about a plan, in which their lives would be at risk, now closed their mouths and looked at Michelle with expressions of shock. Michelle. General Michelle. Did you succeed in controlling it? But, how did you reconnect your brain? No, that's impossible. Even after regaining control of your body, it would still be impossible to stop the energy in your state. General Michelle, according to my partner, you are currently in a stable position. But are you really okay? Questions that were full of disbelief were being thrown around. It was no surprise. The problem had been solved so quickly that it was hard to believe it. I know that you all have a lot you want to say, but wait. I must thank my savior first. With these words, the others seemed to regain their calm a little. And then their gazes turned to Feldera and then me. Boing. A light blue sphere, well, more of an ellipse creature. And even I knew that my appearance was suspicious. However, Michelle looked straight at me. And then she said, "So, it's you that saved me and this world. You have my thanks." Amazingly, this Michelle person seemed to understand what had happened while time had stood still. Perhaps she had grown mentally when her brain was cut off from her body? Either that, or it was an effect of the special substances birthed from the Mobius system. Apparently, Feldera had not been able to use appraisal due to outside disturbances. The Mobius system was so mysterious that it was no wonder Master Seal had an interest in it. In any case, this would make things easier. Michelle seemed like a leader here. She had that sense of authority that allowed her to dominate the others. And it would make it easier for me to talk if someone in her position was able to understand things. I intended to negotiate about the future in detail. With this thought in mind, I transformed into a human as a show of politeness. I felt more relaxed as a slime, but it was hard to look people in the eyes. Hello. I am Rimuru. It seems like my comrades have caused you a lot of trouble. I'm Michelle. They haven't caused any trouble at all. It was I who asked for their aid. Michelle answered back. She sounded a little nervous. Next to me, Feldera was mumbling. Don't use such lukewarm words. Introduce me as a sworn brother. I would definitely be ignoring him. Regardless, he was clearly going to leave everything to me. So I left him and looked around the room. Before I knew it, a hushed silence had fallen over the place. And their eyes were piercing into me. Why? Don't they realize how uncomfortable it made me? I wondered, but I couldn't just say goodbye and leave now. There were still problems left to solve. Now, I'm sure you all have different opinions, but surely you agree that this chaos must be stopped? I want to discuss the future. Is that all right? Feldera and the others had sided with the resistance. That meant they had gone against the Empire, and yet, they were also somehow allies with Michelle. In other words, things were not so simple. There was a lot happening behind the scenes. And as things had escalated so far, it seemed like the proper thing to do was to make everything clear. Of course. And I would like the leaders of the resistance to hear as well. There is no point in hiding anything now. It will expose the Empire's shame, but this is not the time to worry over such things. Michelle said. Then she smiled with an insightful look. She accepted my suggestion and began to talk about the hidden truth. Tribes warring, language barriers, economic disparities, religious differences. In view of all of these things, my father, Omsbine, decided who would become residents of the city. It was all a gamble for the survival of our species. I still feel that it is meaningless to argue about good and evil in this case. After all, our civilization would not exist today if he had not enacted this. Michelle finished there. That was the full story of the project. Of course, you could try to persuade those who had been cut off and abandoned, but you were not likely to make them understand. But an administrator had to make decisions. She said. They would have talked if things could be resolved that way. However, when one side profited while the other suffered, there was nothing you could do to reach a consensus. And if that happened, they would run out of resources while discussions ran on. Mankind would be destroyed. But, even then, that's not enough, Michelle. Even after that, there was no future for us. Man muttered quietly. He was sitting on the ground and looked exhausted. And yet the voice rang around the room, and everyone heard him clearly. Fyodora, what are you? He's called Fyodora, huh? He was the man who had been fighting the raging gravity waves next to Michelle until the end. Appearance-wise, Fyodora was a young man. And yet he seemed aged, somehow. The voice was just as tired. But he spoke so that everyone could hear him, not just Michelle. It was full of despair, and yet it was an accurate analysis of the current situation. We don't have a future. Even if we used our remaining resources wisely, there is still a limit to how many humans we can support. There was nothing to spare for the people outside of the city who called themselves the Resistance. Even within the cities, West does not have much time. North is already starting to crumble. That is why we needed the Mobius system. He said this very weakly. It was very close to what Master Seal predicted for this world's future. Wait. What do you mean? Didn't we go through with the contamination removal plan as a way of fighting against those predictions? No, Michelle. That was just our official stance. The super beasts were born as a way of leaving the roots of mankind's possibilities. We created life forms that could live under harsh circumstances and hoped that they would become intelligent. We humans cannot live in undeveloped land. We can't do anything once severed from our civilization. It's not enough to decontaminate the world. Fyodora said. And then he laughed as if he had gone mad. Then voices rose and the arguments began. That's it, really. According to Master Seal, as they have not inherited the technology, they are not able to lower their civilization level. They needed those cities to maintain their current lifestyle. And that required immense energy. Apparently, all of their food was automatically grown as well. They did not even know how to do it all by hand anymore. Their civilization had become too convenient. They could not return. And now, their world was contaminated. They would need to cultivate the earth after they purified it. However, there was no water. The ground was dry and unfit for growing crops. There were no rivers, it was just barren wasteland as far as the eye could see. Not only that, but it seemed that even the seas had dried up. You could not see the sun. It really did look like it was the end of the world. Really, it was astounding that humanity had survived at all. So there really wasn't any hope of getting out of this situation by human hands. So the only way was to make use of the cities, but they had limits. Nuclear fusion reactors didn't create energy out of nothing. You needed fuel. So, considering all of that, this world had no future. And so that was why this man called Fyodora and seen hope in the Mobius system. And he had tried to kill everyone who might get in his way, just in case his plan failed. In other words, humanity needed to be culled. Perhaps this Fyodora had the resolve to commit heinous crimes. It seemed like they were discussing having him executed. And giving my opinion on the matter wouldn't help them solve anything. However, I had every intention of stopping something as troubling as an execution. Fyodora seemed quite smart. Perhaps I could find a use for him if this world was going to execute him. I would use this problem as a way of negotiating in my favor. Fyodora's testimony had revealed the truth to everyone, so that would make things easier. No one would accuse me of doing things on my own later. I had a plan. To be precise, I would make this world indebted to me by solving their problem, and then I would take Fyodora as payment. At the same time, I would close my eyes towards all the things that Fyodora and the others had done. Besides, it didn't seem like any continued talks would lead to anything good. It was best to go ahead and solve the problem. I know you all have your reasons. You must have a lot to say. However, I would like it if you left things to me now. And with that, we can wipe the slate clean. As for the future, we can talk about it once you've seen the results. I interrupted their conversation with this declaration. In any case, they couldn't ignore me now. And it was to my advantage that they seemed a little exasperated. Usually, interactions with other worlds had to be conducted more carefully. That's why I had told them not to go. However, since Feldera and the others had already gotten so involved, I couldn't abandon them. To put it bluntly, I would have trouble sleeping at night. Still, it would be necessary to give Feldera and Ramiris a long, hard talk about the importance of prudence. But that could come later. How much could I interfere in the affairs of this world? Should I interfere at all? It was a difficult question. Basically, I needed a pretext for saving this world. The room fell quiet as soon as I spoke. Then they all looked at me awkwardly. I could even see fear in some of their eyes. I don't understand. I went out of my way to become a human because I thought it would be rude. That being said, I could very well make use of their confusion. Rimuru, Lord. What did you? I ignored this question from Michelle as I turned to Feldera. Feldera had been discussing something with Ramiris and Beretta while I had been distracted by Michelle. It seemed like he was bragging to them about what happened while time had stopped. While I was here, he acted as if the problems of Michelle and the others were none of his business. He was telling them that it was because of him that the Mobius system would be installed in Beretta. Ramiris and Beretta listened to him with the deepest respect. It was a little annoying, but I would let it pass. I would have him work in exchange later on. Feldera. This world seems to be in danger, huh? Yes, it appears to be so. So, what are you going to do, Rimuru? Maybe we could just take the children with us. No. How cold of you. We should save those that we can save. Then they can learn of my greatness. Feldera said. I smiled at him. Feldera saw my smile and finally sensed the danger. What are you going to do? Put away that scary fan. I beat the air with the fan so that it cracked loudly. Feldera was stunned as his eyes looked to me with worry. By the way, about your punishment for acting without my permission. I paused ominously and cracked the paper fan in the air again. I continued only after confirming that Feldera's eyes were shifting uncomfortably. I think I will exclude you and Ramiris from my next plan. What? Huh? Me too. Yes, why shouldn't I? Both of you broke your promise and went off by yourselves. I said. Now it was not just Feldera. Ramiris was getting very nervous too. Ramiris seemed to assume that she had nothing to do with it. Did she really think that I would overlook her? If that was true, she was too naive. But I have nothing to do with this. I was just dragged in. Wait, Rimuru. There is a reason here that is deeper than the sea. Wah! It's not like that, Rimuru. I was abducted by Master, that's what happened. Hey, shut up. Stop spouting lies. You were quite happy to plot along with me. And then the ugly fight between them began. However, I have considered the possibility of not asking about it. Thankfully, I am the only one who knows about your little escapade. So, you would listen to what I have to say. I said this as if it were really too good for them. They immediately took the bait. It was quite amusing. Ka-ha-ha-ha. Well, why didn't you say so sooner? Ask us anything you want, Rimuru. I'll do anything, okay? Leave it all to me. They were so easy. I'm not sure. I swear to keep my promises from now on. We won't run away. Me too. Besides, it's more interesting with you there, Rimuru. Feldera and Ramiris made their desperate appeals. Beretta was looking at them with exasperation. It was as if he knew that this would happen. Well, no real harm had come from it, and they both seemed to be sorry. So, no more forestalling. Yes. I promise. They might do it again once they forget their fear, but they should be obedient for a while. This was enough for now. And so I nodded and forgave both of them. So, what is it you want us to do? I'll do anything. Both of them rushed me on as if they were still worried that I would change my mind. They really didn't need to. I wasn't mad anymore. And so I left it in the past and answered their question. I can't really leave this world as it is, so I want to save it as soon as possible. That will be easy for you too, won't it? I said casually. Hey. Are you sure, Rimuru? Wasn't it you that forbid anyone from interfering too much with this world? Exactly. Saving this world. We won't be able to do that while looking like we're not involved. It was incredibly rare for these two to say something that made sense. Perhaps it was due to my daily efforts to educate them. There was a sense of normalcy that had taken root and was growing. However, it was a bit late for that. How can we leave this world and go home, when we know that it's headed for destruction? Not being able to sleep at night would be the least of my problems. It would be one thing if I didn't know about it. But now that we did, I didn't think it was wrong to lend them a hand. Ka ha ha ha. Yes, that's true. Then I will hesitate no further in helping them. That's what you want, right? Yeah. Do it. I gave my permission. Thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe for more content.